Hi there, this is Dokshi and welcome back to my channel. This is a relatively new channel, so thank you very much for dropping by and deciding to watch this video. So how have you all guys been in this period of quarantine? I know this is a sacrifice for all of us. Wherever you are in the world or wherever you are in the Philippines, the guidelines may be different, but it all boils down to one point, which is we are all encouraged to stay at home for the meantime because it will help flatten the curve or help decrease the number of cases that are being affected by this disease called COVID-19, which is actually posing a health emergency in our country today. So maybe it has come to a point that all of you are a little bit bored already at home, but please do think that this is all for our own good. So speaking about being bored, this video is actually the second part of two parts of the things that we can do while we are on quarantine due to COVID-19 disease. However, hopefully soon when we get over this pandemic, these tips will also be useful when we are called to stay at home for some reason or another. I will be tackling the rest of the tips that I can share to you in order to avoid feeling bored at home. But before we move on to the rest of the tips with one bonus tip at the end, let us first recall the first 5 things that we can do while we are on quarantine at home. Number 1 is to get enough rest. So this is the time wherein we can make up for lost sleep, and in doing so we will also build up our immune system or build up our resistance so we can fight COVID-19 disease and not be infected by the virus that causes it. The second tip would be to watch some feel-good shows. These feel-good shows will give you a surge of endorphin, which is the happy hormone that makes us feel happy. So as I've mentioned in the first part of this series, so maybe you can watch some Korean novellas or any documentaries. I've been also watching clips on how to take care of our mental health during this COVID-19 pandemic, and an expert said you may also want to watch some reruns of NBA. It may not give you the same surge of happiness as when it really happened that time, but it can give you a low dose of happiness or a low dose of endorphin, which is better than nothing at all. So of course, let's not confine ourselves to NBA. So there's PBA, which is closer to home. There is also the Australian Open, the latest AO, which happened last January of this year. Or if you're not into sports really, you may want to watch some reruns of your favorite series on Netflix or on local television, which they are playing on TV right now. So the third tip is to declutter or organize your stuff, which is pretty explainable. And then the fourth tip is to start, rekindle, or practice a hobby, which may be gardening or playing an instrument or whatever hobby that you might have. And then the fifth tip is to listen to music, which will soothe your nerves and make you relax even more. So let's go to the sixth tip that I'm going to share to you in order to save all of us from boredom from this period of quarantine due to COVID-19. So I would like to reiterate that there will be a total of 7 tips that I will be sharing in this video, and that last tip or the 12th tip is actually a bonus tip for everyone who would be patient enough to watch this video all throughout. So the next tip or the 6th tip that we can do or thing that we can do while we are on quarantine is to catch up on our reading. I'm sure most of us here are young urban professionals, just like me, a doctor. Some of you may be working at the corporate world. Some of you may be students. So we all have a lot of catch up reading to do. Or if ever you don't like to read about work or your studies, maybe you want to catch up reading all that books you hauled during the Big Bad Wolf sale, or during that book binge, that binge buying that you did at the bookstore. As for me, I really want to catch up reading on all the guidelines about COVID-19 disease. Once in a while, I read anything and entertaining in the internet, but I really have to do a lot of catch up reading on the guidelines concerning COVID-19 disease, because as a frontliner, I am one of the very few who are the very first frontliners, the frontliners of all frontliners, especially that I specialize in internal medicine. So go ahead, grab a book that you feel would be entertaining for you, whatever that is, in order to spend your time during this period of quarantine. So the seventh tip would be journaling. So journaling means maybe you want to document your days during quarantine, or simply write all your reflections during this period, or your reflections about life, your learning experiences from this situation wherein everything is new to us and our lives have changed instantly because of this disease. So the eighth tip would be learn a new language. So at least if you try to learn a new language, your brain cells will be stimulated. Yeah, it is another way in order to keep your brain healthy. So learning a new language would be good for you, especially that we don't have much to do during this period of quarantine. The ninth tip would be enjoy cooking at home. Not all areas in our country may have the food delivery services that we wish for, and making your food out of scratch would be a very fun thing to do. It could be an adventure for you. So why don't you try cooking your own food out of scratch? As for me, I'm not a good cook, although I really love to cook, but I don't have all the time. I cook when I can, and I'm just lucky to also marry someone who also loves to cook. So each time my husband cooks, I help him, and I also try to learn from him about his methods of cooking. So the 10th tip would be meditate, pray, and read the Bible. I know prayer shouldn't be our last resort. It should be our first resort. But this time we have all the time, so we can read the Bible more. No, about maybe you can set a goal of reading the Bible from end to end. I know that is impossible in this time, or maybe who knows, maybe that is possible. In the Bible, we get all the wisdom, all the advice we need, and all the encouragement we need during this time. So why don't you get that Bible, dust it off for being in the corner of the bookshelf for a long time. Now is the time to give it more attention and read the Bible verses, the Bible chapters, and feel the Lord's love in each verse that you read. Now we have come to the second to the last tip before we go to the bonus tip. So this is the 11th tip. So the 11th tip or thing that we can do to save ourselves from boredom while staying at home is to do self-care. So it doesn't actually mean being in quarantine, you have to stay in your pajamas the whole day. You don't have to get up from bed. You don't have to brush your teeth. But it is also a time for self-care most of all. So you have to take a bath every day, still do proper hygiene. That is very important. And it has been stressed also to practice proper hygiene in order to avoid contracting the disease called COVID-19. Self-care would also mean a lot of things like taking a time out from social media so that you don't get overloaded with all the information that they are releasing on media, on social media, on television. So that is also a form of self-care. So anything that you think would boost your emotional feeling or that would make you happy is actually a form of self-care. So now we have reached the bonus tip, which is actually the 12th tip or thing that we can do while we are on quarantine during this period. So the 12th thing or tip that we can do in order to save ourselves from boredom during this period of quarantine is to make a list of the things that you want to do when this pandemic is over. I'm sure all of us, or maybe most of us, if not all of us, are itching to go on that trip that we've been planning but unfortunately has been canceled because of this pandemic, or maybe go shopping or anything that you like. So include that in your list. Maybe you could also include in your list visiting your parents. So that would be one for me. And or buying the stuff that you need in the house or stuff that you need at work, or simply visit a place that you want to go. So those are the things that we can do while we are staying at home because of this period of pandemic due to COVID-19 disease. So I hope I helped you guys with those tips, and I hope you hold on. Just think that if it's not okay, it's not yet over. So this pandemic will soon be over, and soon we will regain back our lives. So stay safe, everyone, and have a great day ahead.